up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. I am doing this live on stream. Everybody say what's up. Everybody say what's up, and let's get into it. We have the 4-3-2-1, the old Christmas tree setup. Now, if you played FC a few years back, this was the meta. If you know anything about FC, every year there's like a meta formation that you have to use, rendering all the other formations useless if you truly want to compete. And for a while, 4-3-2-1 had the honor of being that setup. And it was very different than how I use it. It was very similar to how all the rats would use this setup. Meaning, in FC, they had the automated defense, which much is the case in efootball right now with Smart Assist, that won the ball for you, and then immediately they would win it and spam through balls using either quick counter or, as you see here, I use long ball counter. So you see this, you see my setup, right? You see my sub tactic, which is possession, right? And even that has a high line and pressure. So you might be thinking, wait a second, this might be ratty, bro. Are you trying to be a rat? Absolutely not. If you watch me play, you notice that I'm very much 2 feet, up, back, and throughs, give and goes. All about the build-up, which is the best part of eFootball. That's what's crazy about these rats. And forgive me to the younger generations, but I feel like that's where they come from, because I don't feel like anybody my age or older or around my age that grew up playing the true to roots PES games, the amazing past Konami football games that really you had a badge of honor when you played them because they were the true to football games. Whereas FC, formerly FIFA, was more the arcade. Hey, if you want to be a kid and just jump on and press, shoot, and pass and run 1,000 miles an hour, then go play that arcade game. But if you want to play football, you play Konami's PES, Winning 11, all that. Now, that's how I play eFootball, and you can absolutely do it. It has great mechanics for it, and this setup really brings those out if you use it the right way. So why is this setup the best right now for me, in my opinion? Not just for me, I should say, but as an entire meta, if you use it the right way. Well, first off, because of all these rats abusing through balls, this midfield setup is huge. Because defensively, you obviously have 4 defensive backs, right? The players you have is absolutely important, right? If I have a Roberto Carlos and a Cafu that are more attacking, running up the wings, leaving my Burn, Van Dijk, and Declan, which, by the way, needs defensive settings. We'll go over that, but he's a box-to-box. If I leave that setup without any settings and these two running up the wings, not defensive fullbacks as they are, I'm going to get absolutely burnt. When the opponent wins the ball, they're going to spam a through ball. There's going to be holes everywhere. They're going to get through. They're going to score. Well, with Maldini, a defensive fullback, and Thuram, defensive fullback, Van Dijk, build up, Dan Burn, destroyer. So the perfect back four setup. You see how deep I am, a little deeper than the 18-yard box. Right? And then Declan, you see, as deep as he can go as a DMF. And then, because he's a box-to-box, even though his stats scream Anchorman, right? Look at those stats. Now, obviously, you can see, okay, box-to-box too, but the defensive ability, there's no way that you're going to find players better. You might find equal, like Rijkaard and Declan on the same level. I did a video about that. You can check that out. But Declan is every bit a god of the game if Rijkaard is, which I believe he is. So all you have to do to alleviate the box-to-box and make him an anchorman is give him that defensive setup. And then if you don't want him going to the left or to the right, you would then give him anchoring, right? So Declan's going to stay back in the center, but if the wingbacks ever push up, which sometimes, even though I have the defensive setup on Maldini, because even as defensive fullback, he ventures up sometimes. Not as much Thuram, right? Which I guess it's just part of their player ID. So he ventures up. You see that higher offensive awareness that probably has something to do with it. Declan, without anchoring, will come over and cover for him. If, instead of putting defensive on both Maldini and Declan, I left it off Maldini and put anchoring on Declan, basically what would happen is Maldini would shoot up the field sometimes. Declan would come over and cover. Because I have defensive on Maldini, I really don't have to worry about anchoring too much. However, like I said, those times where I run up the wings with Maldini or Thuram, now I have that cover ability with Rice. If I put, like I said, if I went in and put defensive and then anchoring, he would not go left or right, which means even if there's a big hole your opponent's exploiting because your wingbacks make a run up the field, he won't go and cover that. That is a huge issue, right? So I don't put anchoring, only defensive on Declan, or if you have any player in this position that's not an anchor man, I strongly suggest defensive but not anchoring, okay? Even with defensive fullbacks. All right, now moving into the other two midfielders. They help snuff out those opponents through balls that many of them are trying to spam all the time, right? You see especially Seedorf, tremendous defensive abilities. They could even be higher. I actually lowered him to raise his offensive awareness and finishing because he's all over the place and he's going to get chances. And if you don't raise it and it's in the 60s, you're going to regret it because those chances are going to come in important times and you're going to want him to have at least somewhat of the ability to finish them all. Now, I raised him back into the 80s, but even without any, even if you lower all of his defensive attributes, it's still the upper 70s. So now he just has some offensive awareness and ability to go with the fact that he's all over the place. He'll snuff out those balls on the defensive end. He's got the speed, good dribbling to get up and help create an attack with our front three, as well as Bellingham. As now the box-to-box, he does help more defensively, but he still gets up. Whereas Jude Bellingham is a whole player, again, defensive abilities, and he will be there to help snuff out the opponent trying to spam those through balls, but mainly as a whole player, he's shooting up into the gaps left by the defense and spaces left open when these three are making their runs. So, again, this three-man midfield close together like this, sitting right in front of our four backs, a little bit deeper. Long ball counter has a deeper line, right? You have a back seven that's going to be able to really make it hard for those opponents to find holes to play those through balls through. Right? So then we win it with any one of these four or Declan, and we typically will play it up to Seedorf or Bellingham, or maybe skip them, and then Pele or Cruyff will play it back to Seedorf or Bellingham, right? And then we go through a lot of up, back, and throughs. So defensive, they're here. Offensively, you'll see Seedorf shooting up the field and Jude Bellingham shooting up the field, either past Bellingham or Cruyff if it's an up, back, and through, or just behind them. So they're almost moving as a unit. Then you move up to our attacking three. Now, Pele, deep lying forward. The reason why I put him as an AMF is because if you go to play styles, deep lying forward, this is a forward that's going to come back to the ball a lot. Okay, now I do have Pele coming back to the ball as well as my other players, but I manually do it using super cancel. When I have the ball, I look, can I play a slicing through ball through a gap, or can I call them two? I decide that, play the ball, use super cancel, call them two. I don't want deep lying forward on deciding when to come to because a lot of times they'll miss gaps to run through. Because Pele has such a high offensive awareness and a good player ID, I turn off deep lying forward by playing him AMF instead of center forward and secondary striker. And now he'll make more darting runs, but have the ability, because I boosted his passing, to be a setup man too if he needs to be, right? On the case of Cruyff, his former card, the Ajax version, the last release of Cruyff, I had it on my last account. Very good player, but same thing. I played him AMF to turn off the deep lying forward, and he was great. Johan Cruyff here, I don't have to turn it off. He's a whole player. So I could put him as a secondary striker, but I just play him as an AMF because a whole player, as I've said before, I think is the best attacking playstyle outside of the strikers who have their own thing with advanced striker, poacher, and stuff. But the best attacking playstyle outside of the strikers' playstyles is whole player. So Cruyff will still make those darting runs while also being available to win the ball here as a traditional number 10. So both of these guys are traditional number 10s and also play as, those number 11s, those secondary strikers. Then, last but not least, Roberto Baggio, creative playmaker. The only way to turn this playstyle off, okay, is to play him at center forward, which you don't think that with Roberto Baggio, right? You're like, wait a second, right? He can absolutely play it, but you don't think about that with a creative playmaker, Roberto Baggio, until you realize you can give him this. Now, his passing's much higher to start, but I lowered it on purpose because he's playing that center forward position, and look what you can get out of him. So just in case you didn't see it last time and you want the center forward version of Baggio, it's 11-1, 4-11, 9-5. One more time, 11-1, 4, 11, 9, 5. That will get you this with the booster Fantasista. Okay, so you see right there. Absolute beast, perfect, above perfect acceleration. Like my rule is 95 is the highest you ever need to go in anything. Sometimes you go higher naturally because you need other attributes connected to it higher. But typically speaking, 95 is perfect. Okay, so you see he's perfect. Offensive awareness, finishing, acceleration is above perfect. Speed is nearly perfect. I mean, this is exactly what you want out of your center forward. He's not going to win aerial duels. He's not going to be the strongest, as you see, but still not terrible. There's worse players out there with lower physical contact, so he does just fine. And still with his passing ability to lay off, one touch, or receive and do a through pass as he receives back to goal, he has that ability with the 80 low pass and lofted passes at 71. So he's actually a perfect smaller center forward who does well either coming back to the ball or making those darting runs with that 95 offensive awareness and with that creative playmaker turned off. So if you were wondering why not Pele up top, Baggio behind, that's exactly why. Pele deep lying forward, turned off. Baggio creative playmaker turned off. Now, why don't I like creative playmaker? Why do I want whole player? Because if you read here, and this is exactly how it plays, creative playmaker, player who takes advantage of gaps in defense, but it's to initiate attacks and assist in shots on goal, meaning they're not going to make those runs. They're going to see those gaps and try to look for a pass. Now, whole player is the opposite. They look at those gaps in the defense, look where they can create chances to score, and hammer through those gaps all game long. So that's why I'd rather have whole player. If I left creative playmaker on, Baggio would be more sitting back looking to play these guys through. Now he's making runs all over the place. Same with Pele and Cruyff as a whole player, of course. Bellingham as a whole player, same thing. Both Cruyff and Bellingham are going to be shooting up from deep, which many times leaves them unmarked. Same with Pele coming from deeper. You saw last game, many times they'll be unmarked. Seedorf as a box-to-box helps Declan, but he also helps these guys just as much. I mean, he's literally all over. The one player in my scouting that I'd say is probably better, especially in this role, this box-to-box role, probably that Conte box-to-box. However, Seedorf's a beast. Now, you've seen the back line, full defensive back line. You've seen Declan box-to-box turn CDM due to individual instructions, defensive, and then I throw it on Maldini because even though he's a defensive back, he tends to push forward sometimes when I don't have the ball, even though I want him staying back. So just watch out for that with your different players and their IDs on what individual instructions you have or need. These two, the defensive ones, counter target and deep line, which someone asked about, and I'm answering now, you can use it, and deep line absolutely can help, and so can counter target. But I save these for either tight marking or man marking. Typically, I don't go man marking. It would be tight marking 1 to 2 of the opponent's players. But if I did do deep line, obviously Declan would push back in between Burn and Van Dijk, and I'd have a 5-back. But I don't want Declan doing that. I want him staying in this wall of 3, helping to block out the potential through balls or potential steal the ball up here, rush us real quick, counterattacks, right? So you can use deep line if you're okay with that gap in the midfield and just allowing them to get to your back 5 if you feel comfortable there. I'd rather have Declan right here, connected to Seedorf and Bellingham right in front of my back 4. Now, Livakovic, out of the keepers you could pick, I truly believe I got easily the best keeper and one of the best in the game. Livakovic doesn't have the 104, 105 ratings, but he just makes saves. If you watch me play, if you've been watching, you see what I'm talking about, right? Not the tallest in the world, not the highest stats in the world, but a great keeper. The only time I'm ever changing him, unless maybe I spin for instance, like Beckenbauer, if I decide to, and I happen to get Buffon. Okay, well then I'll put Buffon in. But the only keeper I'd honestly be aiming to get over Livakovic right now would be Oliver Kahn, and that's more for sentimental value. Oliver Kahn has always been since 99. He was my favorite goalkeeper ever, since 99. As a Man United fan, I say that, because he was the only keeper to ever scare the shit out of me. Right? Van der Sar didn't, Schmeichel didn't, Barthez didn't, all of our Man United legend goalkeepers. But Oliver Kahn scared the shit out of me. The keepers nowadays are laughable compared to that man. And a lot of keepers were scary back then, but Oliver Kahn was the scariest. But Livakovic, a great keeper. If you got him, you did good. If not, you missed out. So that's that. As far as who I would spin for, I'm going to check out the Monday releases, just like all the epic releases and Showtime and big time releases. But as of right now, right, this is without knowing that Rooney was coming. I was only going to aim for Vieira when he came out, Oliver Kahn, as I said, and then Rijkaard to play center back. That was it. Everybody else I'm set with. However, if you follow this channel, you know Wayne Rooney is my favorite player ever. I'm a Man United fan since literally 1992. That's how old I am, I know. And Rooney wasn't quite the class of 92, but he came at when they were younger still, right? As a 16-year-old, killing it for Everton, comes over, lights it up, and he's just became my favorite player. His work ethic, the way he plays, I love it all. He would replace Cruyff, right? There's no way I could touch Baggio and Pele ever. Cruyff, barely I could make the justification. So he'd either go in for Cruyff, or I would move to a double pivot, okay? Then move to like a 4-2-3-1 type of situation, and Rooney would join Cruyff and Pele. One of those two, but 100%, as you've seen on the cover of this stream, I'm going for Rooney. That's one of the biggest things I wanted to talk to you about, because if he's done right, that's the beauty of eFootball, is they make these legends from these different eras. Like FC says they do, but they're all the same, just with different attributes and different playstyles and playstyle pluses. eFootball actually connects. Like the new Messi plays like the new Messi. The throwback Barcelona Messi, the 107 version, plays like that Messi. If they do Rooney justice with his ability to move like so nimbly, even though he's a big stocky player, his ability to run through everyone, as stronger than even the strongest defenders, he will be an absolute wrecking ball of a player, an absolute monster, right? An attacking player with the ability to run all day, the ability to track back and help win the ball as much as he assists and as much as he scores as well, with both feet. I mean, he can cross, he can pass, shoot, everything, dribble. He's got it all. If they do him right, Rooney could potentially become one of the best, if not rival Pele for the best attacker in the game. It would be a Mount Rushmore of like Pele, Romario, Rooney, and like Ruminage, right? And Ruminage barely is on there. He's a sick strike. I shouldn't say that. He should be on there. I shouldn't say barely. But he'd be like the fourth face, the area on Mount Rushmore you don't want, if that makes sense. But long story short is, that's the squad. That's who I'd be spinning for, unless, you never know, somebody could surprise me. I will say this. I want to go out and show you the players left that I could get that I'm tempted. Obviously, Puskás. I play with him plenty in FC. He's an insane lefty type, left-footed striker, but he can use his right. Now let's go see that actually. What did they give him with his right foot? They gave him, rarely uses his non-dominant leg, but it's high precision. So like Adriano never uses it in like medium precision. So basically his weak foot sucks. Puskás can use it, but he's typically left-footed, and he does so well with it that he doesn't really need to use his right. Super good dribbler, as you can see. Amazing finisher, as you can see, and pretty good speed as well, and even passing. I mean, you could play him AMF, you could play him out wide. He's more that smaller, more nimble. He's a little stocky, but like a mini version of Rooney stocky. So yes, it's tempting to go for him. He's an absolute legend. It's his first time in this era of eFootball, but I just don't need him, especially with Rooney coming. It would be overkill. Now over here, sorry, same area. Over here, by the way, first, real quick, I emptied this box. Clearly, this box is an emptier. Unless Seedorf, I could see, I almost didn't go for him too, but only because I was going to go for this man. I chose Seedorf, okay? And as you can see, before I lowered him, he would be all 90 defense, okay? Amazing dribbling, amazing everything. The only thing I did was raise his offensive awareness and finishing, which I strongly recommend, because he's all over the place. He does create chances. You want him to have a bit higher than he comes with awareness and finishing. As for McTominay, a much better all-arounder when it comes to stats, but he is a much bigger type of player, a much different feel on the ball. So I ultimately went for Seedorf. I do think it's the right decision, but I will be interested to play against this McTominay, because if used right, I do think he could be an absolute beast. And with my 4K plus coins, I'm tempted to spin for him. However, a combination of having Seedorf already and not needing Marcus Thuram at all. He doesn't match how I play. He's not going to break into the lineup. I already have beast strikers like this on the bench. I don't need him at all. And I obviously just said I don't need a keeper. If I got Savage, would he move to the starting role? Of course he would, right? Of course he would. because he's the tallest keeper in the game with insane level jumping once his stats are boosted. I've seen him fully boosted. And he can just play this position. You're going to give up goals with anybody. It doesn't matter if you have Schmeichel, Kahn. But that tallness, still with the ability to move and have great stats like he does, of course I'd start him, but I'm not going to go after him per se. Okay? So that's where I'm at. And next spinning I will look at, not do for sure, but I'll look at is the Monday. I think it's Van Bronckhorst. Hope I'm saying that right. I'm not a big historical fan of Van Bronckhorst. Then there is, who is it? Van Bronckhorst. Oh, Beckenbauer. There's center back versions, defensive mid versions. We'll have to see which one's coming out. And then the third player was, I can't remember. You guys will have to wait and see. My rating on that is I have to see more on Van Bronckhorst, like when he comes out. But Beckenbauer absolutely is a beast CDM. The version I had was an orchestrator. I think this one is too. Maybe it will be a destroyer, maybe an anchorman. Who knows? Maybe it's a center back version. We'll have to see. But he was a beast. He would battle between Pirlo and McAllister, Showtime McAllister, for a starting spot. But he can't beat out Declan Rice, or if he could, it would be just barely. Most likely not going to be spinning for that box. However, maybe it's a great box for you. I just want to give you the information I know. Once again, this is the 4-3-2-1. Long ball counter, Spalletti, the manager, my tactic, possession game. I go like this, just push them out wider, up deeper, because in possession they come two. So I don't want them on top of each other to begin with, and then they just cluster up. I push them out further, and I can even go more than this. Honestly, I could even go like this, right? They're going to be coming two, so I can space them out even more, because they're going to be coming two. You see what I'm saying? Even Thuram, who will open up defensively. And I'll do that with Maldini as well and actually make him a left back. So way spread out, and then obviously they're going to be checking two in possession. Which, if you ever want to get the details and have it and actually understand, you just go here, right? When attacking, players maintain tight positioning to maximize the effectiveness of short passes. So you see the arrow. They all come towards the ball. So imagine if I have them like this, instead of like this, for possession, where do they have to come to the ball at? They're literally going to be coming to 2 yards away. It's going to be a mess. So when you play them like this, right, they all come in and they have that space. So they'll have the defenders pushed out. Then they'll come in towards the ball, right, giving space for up, back, and throughs, give and goes, things like that, created just off the possession. So that's why I do that. If you're a possession player, I strongly recommend, maybe not this exaggerated, but I strongly recommend you open your players up and then bring them in. For long ball counter, make sure you have your players tight because they're going to be running away from the ball. You'll have to do super cancel to get them to show two. And so have them tight, making those runs out, taking the defenders away, so you can then come back in and have space to make your next decision. That's everything for this tactical setup. I hope this helps. If you enjoy this, please smash the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Join our Discord if you haven't. We have an insane community, a lot of which are watching this as we speak. And you can get all the information you want, not just from eFootball, but UFL, FC, anything, real football. We have it all in our Discord. The link is in the YouTube bio. I will see you on the next one. Make sure you keep grinding. Make sure you keep having fun, and peace.